Steve here. Recently, when she was on the campaign trail, someone asked Hillary Clinton if she became president, would she appoint President Barack Obama to the Supreme Court? Now, she said it was probably a good idea, but President Obama probably wouldn't be into it. And that got me thinking, whoever's the next president, whether it be Hillary Clinton, Rand Paul, Martin O'Malley, or even Jim Gilmore, will probably be appointing a Supreme Court justice or two. Now, many of you know I'm a big fan of the Supreme Court, and I follow it more than I do the president or Congress. I even dressed up as Oliver Wendell Holmes for Halloween. And I have a few ideas of who I think should be on the Supreme Court. And if the next president of the United States is listening, here are my suggestions. So I'll give you 9 picks, because there's 9 Supreme Court justices. So in case, all 9 get wiped out by Ebola. Or, and this is probably more likely, Ebola hits the United States. So they hunker down with like Carly Rae Jepsen. And then they run out of snacks. And you know what Carly does? She resorts to cannibalism and eats them all. Here are my picks. Number 9. Former Solicitor General Ted Olson. Now, Ted Olson is probably most famous for arguing on the side of Bush and Bush v. Gore. But he's also known for sticking up for same-sex marriages. Altogether, Ted Olson's a stand-around guy, and that's why he's one of my picks for Supreme Court Justice. Well, seeing how we looked at a former Solicitor General, let's look at a former Attorney General. Number 8, Alberto Gonzales. Now, one of the important things that people look at when they're picking a new justice for the Supreme Court is whether or not they will stick with what the Supreme Court has done or make changes. And some people want to see changes. They want to see this justice appeal something like Buck versus Bell or Kelo versus New London. And if you want changes to be made, as opposed to sticking with what the Supreme Court had done before, why don't you choose someone who can't remember what the Supreme Court has done? So my next pick for Justice of the Supreme Court is another Attorney General, the current Attorney General. Number 7 is Loretta Lynch.
Loretta Lynch? Why would you want her on the Supreme Court?
Well, if she's appointed, she would be the first African-American woman on the Supreme Court.
Okay, but why are you going to put her on the Supreme Court?
Well, she would be the first African-American woman on the Supreme Court.
I already understand that, but why should she be on the Supreme Court?
Well, she would be the first African-American woman on the Supreme Court.
Seems to me that's the only thing I know about her.
That's racist!
Quit running that progressive guilt trip crap on me and explain to me why you think she would be qualified for the Supreme Court.
That's racist!
Fuck you. Fine, put her on the Supreme Court. Dipshit.
Number 6, Sandra Day O'Connor. I know she resigned from the Supreme Court, but is there any reason we can't get her back? So my next pick, you probably know from television. She was known for being tough but fair, being a wise and a wiseacre. I'm of course talking about Judge Marilyn Milian from the People's Court. You thought I was going to go with Judge Judy. Well, that would have been too obvious. Number 4, Judge Reinhold. Obviously. Now my next pick is fictional. He's not real, but nevertheless I think he's a shining example of what the justice system should be. I'm of course talking about Judge Doom from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Now I know he was the villain, but anyone willing to give Woody Woodpecker the death penalty is all right in my book. Number 2, Rupert Grint. Now I know he's young, and he's English, and he hasn't got any judicial experience at all. But the man needs work, people. And And now we come to my number one pick, who is also my pick for Chief Justice of the United States. And that person is Simon Cowell. Couldn't you just see Simon Cowell being a judge for reals? I mean, people will come up to him, with some argument against the rights of privacy, and he'd be like, "Your argument is dreadful, absolutely dreadful. It's just awful." Yeah, I could see him being Chief Justice.
Oh, still my heart, oh.